Dr. Liam Hayes had always believed that xenolinguistics was a field for scholars who preferred their excitement in manageable doses, archaeological discoveries, theoretical breakthroughs, the occasional paradigm shift that required rewriting textbooks rather than running for one's life. The research station Harmony's Edge existed specifically to provide that kind of controlled environment, floating in the neutral zone between human and Zephyrian space like a diplomatic bubble where cultures could meet without the complications of territorial politics. Which made the arrival of Princess Lyralii of the Zephyrian Ascendancy something like finding a supernova in your coffee cup, beautiful, unprecedented, and potentially explosive. Dr. Hayes, Station Commander Torres announced over the intercom, her voice carrying the particular strain that indicated her day had become significantly more complex than anticipated. Please report to Diplomatic Reception Bay 3. Our distinguished guest has requested your immediate presence. Liam saved his work on Zephyrian grammatical structures and tried to remember everything he knew about royal protocol for a species he'd only studied through academic texts. The Zephyrians were crystalline beings whose features seemed carved from living gemstones, possessed of technological capabilities that bordered on the mystical and social structures that emphasized emotional resonance over individual achievement. Princess Lyralii was, according to his research, approximately 300 Earth years old, middle-aged by Zephyrian standards, and renowned for her expertise in energy manipulation and diplomatic theory. None of which had prepared him for the reality of her presence. She stood in the center of Reception Bay 3 like a sculpture that had decided to come to life, her crystalline skin catching and reflecting the station's artificial lighting in patterns that seemed to create their own gentle aurora. Her features combined angular elegance with organic curves in ways that suggested evolution guided by aesthetic principles, and her eyes held depths that seemed to contain accumulated wisdom from centuries of experience. Dr. Hayes, she said, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated in frequencies human ears weren't designed to detect but somehow heard anyway, I have been looking forward to meeting the human who wrote grammatical structures as cultural expression in non-human language systems. Your analysis of Zephyrian emotional syntax was illuminating. Princess Lyralii, Liam replied, attempting a formal bow that hopefully conveyed respect without accidentally communicating anything inappropriate in Zephyrian body language. I'm honored by your presence on Harmony's Edge. Though I should mention that most of my work has been theoretical, this is actually my first direct contact with a native Zephyrian speaker. Theoretical knowledge can be more valuable than practical experience, she said, moving closer with the fluid grace that made it seem like she was floating rather than walking. It allows for objective analysis without the biases that come from personal investment. Something in her tone suggested layers of meaning that his textbook knowledge hadn't prepared him to interpret. May I ask what brings you to our station, Your Highness? The cultural exchange program wasn't scheduled to begin for another 3 months. Princess Lyralii's crystalline features shifted in patterns that Liam recognized as deep contemplation, though the specific emotions were beyond his ability to decode. I have come to discuss matters that concern the future relationship between our peoples. But first, I am curious about human customs regarding permanent bonds between individuals. Permanent bonds? Liam asked, trying to shift his mental gears from diplomatic pleasantries to academic discussion. Do you mean marriage? Partnership agreements? There are several human traditions that. Marriage, yes. Her attention focused on him with intensity that made the air itself seem to vibrate. When humans choose to bind their lives together, what does this commitment entail? What obligations, what shared responsibilities, what spiritual connections? Liam found himself in the unusual position of explaining his own species' romantic customs to alien royalty while trying to understand why this information was relevant to interstellar diplomacy. Marriage varies significantly across human cultures, but generally it involves emotional commitment, shared life goals, legal partnership, and often the expectation of permanent bonding regardless of changing circumstances. And this bonding, it changes the individuals involved. In many ways, yes. Married couples often report feeling like they've become part of something larger than themselves. They develop shared decision-making processes, emotional synchronization, sometimes even unconscious coordination of behavior patterns. Princess Lyralii nodded as if this information confirmed something she'd suspected. Among my people, such bonds are more literal than humans might expect. When Zephyrians choose to unite their lives, the connection becomes tangible, measurable, permanent in ways that transcend individual existence. Before Liam could ask for clarification, the station's emergency communication system activated with the piercing tone that indicated priority messages from outside the neutral zone. All personnel, prepare for emergency reception protocols, Commander Torres announced. We have multiple Zephyrian vessels requesting immediate asylum. Ships show signs of combat damage and are carrying refugee populations. Princess Lyralii's crystalline skin suddenly dimmed, her elegant features shifting to configurations that conveyed profound distress. They have found us sooner than expected. Your Highness. Liam asked, alarmed by her obvious emotional reaction. Civil war has erupted in the Ascendancy, she said, her voice carrying the weight of someone watching her world collapse. Militaristic factions oppose any cooperation with human governments. They view our cultural exchange programs as contamination of Zephyrian purity. The communication system crackled with incoming transmissions in rapid Zephyrian that Liam's universal translator struggled to process, but he caught fragments about damaged ships, wounded refugees, and pursuit by hostile forces. The refugees include members of the royal family, Princess Lyralii continued, moving toward the viewing windows that showed emergency docking procedures in progress. My cousins, their children, advisors who supported peaceful relations with other species. The rebels hunt them as traitors to Zephyrian supremacy. Liam watched Zephyrian vessels limping toward the station's emergency bays, their crystalline hulls showing the scorched patterns of recent weapons fire. What can we do to help? Harmony's Edge has medical facilities, temporary housing, diplomatic immunity protection. It will not be enough, Princess Lyralii said quietly. The rebel forces possess tracking technology that can locate Zephyrian biosignatures across vast distances. Hiding in human space provides only temporary safety. Then what do you need? She turned to face him, her ancient eyes holding depths of emotion that transcended species barriers. I need something that has never been attempted in recorded history, Dr. Hayes. Something that may be impossible, dangerous, and irreversible. Which is? Princess Lyralii moved closer, her presence somehow both comforting and overwhelming. I need a human who is willing to participate in the Velthara. The ancient bonding ritual that unites Zephyrian souls across any distance. It would create a spiritual connection between us that could mask the biosignatures of our refugee families, hiding them from rebel tracking systems. Liam felt his understanding of the situation shift like tectonic plates rearranging themselves. You're talking about the marriage rituals you asked me about. More than marriage. The Velthara creates permanent psychic bonds between participants. They share emotions, memories, life force itself. Among my people, it is performed only between royalty and their chosen life partners, and only when both individuals are prepared to sacrifice individual existence for shared consciousness. And you want to attempt this with a human? I want to attempt this with you, Dr. Hayes. Her voice carried certainties that seemed to echo across dimensions. Your understanding of Zephyrian culture, your academic detachment from political complications, your demonstrated willingness to study other species with respect rather than judgment, these qualities make you uniquely qualified for something that has never been tried. The station shuddered slightly as the last refugee vessel docked, and Liam could hear the sounds of emergency medical teams rushing to assist the wounded. Outside the viewing windows, he caught glimpses of Zephyrian families who had fled their homeworld carrying nothing but the hope that other species might offer sanctuary. What exactly would this ritual involve? He asked. I do not know, Princess Lyralii admitted. The Velthara has never been performed between different species. It could create a beautiful synthesis of human and Zephyrian consciousness, or it could destroy both our minds in the attempt. That's not exactly reassuring. No, she agreed. But Dr. Hayes, if we do nothing, the rebels will track our refugees across human space and slaughter them as examples to anyone who considers cooperation with other species. The choice is between certain death for innocent people and uncertain risk for two individuals who might be able to save them. Liam looked out at the docking bays where Zephyrian refugees were being helped by human medical staff, representatives of two species working together despite the political forces trying to tear them apart. "Princess Lyralii," he said, "before I can make a decision that will change my life permanently, I need to understand something." "Why me specifically?" "You could have asked any human on this station to participate in your ritual." Her crystalline features shifted to configurations he was beginning to recognize as vulnerability mixed with hope. "Because, Dr. Hayes, you are the only human I have ever met whose mind I would be honored to share for the rest of my existence." The refugee medical bay aboard Harmony's Edge had been transformed into something resembling a crystalline garden mixed with a field hospital, where human medical equipment worked alongside Zephyrian healing crystals that hummed with bioresponsive energy. Liam accompanied Princess Lyralii through the organized chaos of relief efforts, watching her interact with the wounded refugees with a combination of royal authority and genuine compassion that made his chest tight with emotions he couldn't quite name. "Dr. Hayes," she said as they paused near a family group where young Zephyrians clung to their parents with the universal desperation of children who'd seen too much violence, "I should explain more clearly what the Velthara entails before you make your decision." They found a quiet alcove where the princess could speak without being overheard by either refugees or station personnel. Her crystalline skin dimmed to softer luminescence, creating an intimate space that felt separate from the surrounding emergency. "Zephyrian consciousness operates differently from human awareness," she began. "We experience emotions as tangible forces that can be shared, manipulated, and even transferred between individuals. The Velthara creates permanent channels between participants that allow complete emotional and mental connectivity." "Complete meaning?" Liam asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer would be more complex than human concepts could easily accommodate. "You would feel my emotions as directly as your own. Experience my memories as if they were part of your personal history. Share my fears, my hopes, my understanding of reality itself." Princess Lyralii's voice carried the weight of someone explaining concepts that had no proper translation. "And I would experience the same connection to your consciousness." Liam tried to imagine sharing his thoughts with someone else permanently and found the concept both terrifying and strangely appealing. "What about individual identity? Do the participants retain their separate personalities?" "That is, one of the mysteries we would be exploring together," she admitted. Traditional Velthara bonds between Zephyrians create enhanced individuals who remain distinct but become part of a larger shared existence. With humans, who knows? We might discover entirely new forms of consciousness. Or we might discover that human and Zephyrian minds are incompatible and end up destroying each other's sanity, Liam pointed out. "That is also possible," Princess Lyralii agreed with the calm acceptance of someone who'd made peace with uncertainty. "But Dr. Hayes, consider the alternative. Without the protection that a human Zephyrian soul bond could provide, these refugees will be hunted across the galaxy by rebels who possess technology specifically designed to track our biosignatures." She gestured toward the medical bay where families tended to wounded relatives while human staff worked to understand Zephyrian medical needs. The tracking systems work by identifying the unique energy patterns that all Zephyrians emit, patterns that are as individual as human fingerprints and just as impossible to conceal using conventional methods. But a human Zephyrian bond would create different energy patterns? Theoretically, yes. The combined consciousness should generate signatures that rebel tracking systems couldn't identify or locate. It would give our people time to reach safe territories beyond rebel reach. Liam watched a young Zephyrian child showing human medical technicians how her family's healing crystals responded to emotional frequencies, both species learning from each other even in crisis. "Princess, may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course. Why do you care so much about maintaining relationships with humans?" "From what I understand, the Zephyrian ascendancy could exist quite successfully without any contact with other species. Princess Lyraliai's crystalline features shifted to configurations that conveyed complex emotions, sadness, hope, and something that might have been longing. Because, Dr. Hayes, isolation breeds stagnation. For centuries, Zephyrian society has been stable, peaceful, and utterly predictable. We have achieved technological mastery, social harmony, and spiritual advancement that other species envy. That sounds like paradise. It sounds like death, she corrected quietly. When a civilization becomes so perfect that nothing new can emerge, when every problem has been solved and every question answered, what remains? We have become beautiful crystalline statues of what we used to be. She moved to the alcove's viewing window, her reflection blending with the stars beyond. Human culture, with all its chaos and contradiction, offers something we have lost, the capacity for genuine surprise. Your species makes choices that no rational analysis would predict, creates art that serves no logical purpose, pursues knowledge simply because it exists to be discovered. You make us sound like fascinating barbarians. You are fascinating, Princess Lyraliai said, turning back to him with intensity that made the air shimmer around her. Humans accomplish impossible things through sheer determination, solve problems by refusing to accept that they're unsolvable, create beauty from materials that shouldn't be beautiful. You are what Zephyrians used to be before we became too civilized for our own good. Before Liam could respond, the station's communication system activated with the urgent tone that indicated priority alerts. Princess Lyraliai, Dr. Hayes, please report to the command center immediately, Commander Torres announced. We have incoming vessels on long-range sensors. Zephyrian signatures, moving fast and showing no response to our diplomatic hails. They hurried through corridors filled with refugees and relief workers, arriving at the command center to find displays showing tactical information that made Liam's stomach drop toward his feet. 3 large Zephyrian vessels approached the station at aggressive speeds, their energy signatures indicating full combat readiness. Rebel forces, Princess Lyraliai confirmed, her voice carrying the grim certainty of someone who'd expected this moment. They've tracked the refugee ships here. How long until they arrive? Liam asked. 18 minutes at current approach velocity, Commander Torres replied. Princess, I need to know, are they likely to respect this station's neutral status? The rebels view any human assistance to Zephyrian refugees as an act of war, Princess Lyraliai said. They will demand immediate surrender of all royal family members and their supporters. When you refuse, they will begin bombardment protocols designed to eliminate everyone aboard. Can we evacuate? Not in 18 minutes. Not with wounded refugees who can't be moved safely. Liam felt the weight of impossible choices settling around him like gravity becoming suddenly heavier. Princess, the ritual you mentioned, how long would it take to perform? The Velthara requires perhaps 10 minutes of preparation and bonding ceremony, she replied. But Dr. Hayes, once begun, the process cannot be stopped or reversed. If you choose this path, we will be permanently connected regardless of the outcome. And if it works? If the soul bond provides the protection you described? Then the refugee families could be hidden from rebel tracking, given time to reach safe territories. The rebel ships would find no trace of their targets and eventually be forced to withdraw. Commander Torres looked between them with the expression of someone trying to follow a conversation that had moved beyond standard diplomatic protocols. Are you discussing some kind of Zephyrian technology that could shield our sensors? We're discussing something much more personal than technology, Liam said, looking at Princess Lyraliai's crystalline features and seeing not alien royalty but someone who'd asked him to share the most intimate connection her species could conceive. Princess, if we do this, if the bond works as you hope, what happens afterward? Do we remain connected permanently? For the rest of our lives, she confirmed. Whether that is days or decades, we would share consciousness across any distance, through any circumstances. You would never again be entirely alone, Dr. Hayes. Neither would I. The tactical displays showed rebel ships continuing their approach, their weapon systems beginning to power up for what appeared to be an attack that would turn diplomatic neutrality into academic theory. Dr. Hayes, Princess Lyralii said, producing from her robes a ring that seemed to be carved from crystallized starlight itself, its surface holding depths that appeared to extend into dimensions his eyes couldn't properly focus on. This is the physical anchor for the Velthara bond. If you choose to help my people, you will wear this ring for the rest of your existence as a symbol of the connection we create together. Liam looked at the ring, then at the tactical displays showing approaching rebel ships, then at the medical bay filled with refugees who had fled their homes hoping for sanctuary. The choice was impossible, terrifying, and somehow inevitable. Princess, he said, extending his hand, I accept. The Velthara ritual took place in Princess Lyralii's temporary quarters, a space that had been hastily prepared with Zephyrian crystals arranged in patterns that seemed to bend light into geometries that shouldn't exist. Liam knelt across from her in the center of the crystalline formation, acutely aware that in approximately 12 minutes, rebel ships would arrive and begin demanding the surrender of everyone in the medical bay. The bonding process will be intense, Princess Lyralii warned, her crystalline features glowing with bioluminescent patterns that responded to her emotional state. Humans and Zephyrians process consciousness differently. We cannot predict what will happen when those systems merge. Any helpful advice for someone about to experience his first interdimensional soul bond? Liam asked, trying to keep his voice light despite the magnitude of what they were attempting. Trust the connection, she said, taking his hands in hers with surprising gentleness. When you feel my memories becoming part of your experience, do not resist them. When my emotions flow through your consciousness, accept them as naturally as you accept your own thoughts. She lifted the crystalline ring, its surface catching light from dimensions that human physics hadn't discovered yet. Are you ready, Dr. Hayes? Liam looked into her ancient eyes and realized that somewhere in the past hour, his feelings toward Princess Lyralii had evolved from professional respect to something much more personal and complex. I'm ready. And Lyralii? When this is over, you can call me Liam. Liam, she repeated, as if testing how his name felt in her voice. I am honored to share this bond with you. She placed the ring on his finger, and reality exploded. The connection hit Liam like diving into an ocean made of liquid starlight, overwhelming his senses with experiences that existed outside normal human perception. Suddenly he could feel Princess Lyralii's consciousness alongside his own, not as separate thoughts but as natural extensions of his awareness that had somehow always been there waiting to be discovered. Her memories flowed through him like inherited experiences, childhood among crystalline spires that sang with harmonic frequencies, centuries of diplomatic study as she learned about dozens of alien species, the growing loneliness of being the only member of her royal family who believed cooperation was preferable to conquest. He experienced her first encounter with human literature, her fascination with Shakespeare's ability to capture universal emotions in species-specific language, her secret hope that somewhere among the stars she might find someone who understood both her responsibilities and her dreams. At the same time, Princess Lyralii gasped as human consciousness flooded through her awareness. She experienced Liam's memories of growing up on Earth's agricultural colonies, his academic passion for understanding how language shapes culture, his decision to dedicate his life to building bridges between species rather than focusing on individual advancement. Through his eyes, she saw human determination, the stubborn refusal to accept limitations that had driven his species from a single planet to settlements across half the galaxy. This is... Liam began, then stopped as he realized he was experiencing Princess Lyralii's wonder at the same moment she felt it. Remarkable, she finished, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated directly in his consciousness. Liam, can you sense what I'm sensing? He could. Through the bond, both of them perceived the approaching rebel ships not just as tactical displays but as emotional signatures, anger, fear, determination twisted into zealotry that made their crews willing to kill innocents for ideological purity. But more importantly, they could sense the refugee families hiding throughout the station, their biosignatures beginning to shift and blur as the soul bond created interference patterns that confused tracking systems. It's working, Liam said, amazed. The energy patterns are changing. More than working, Princess Lyralii added, her consciousness merging with his to process tactical information at speeds neither species could achieve alone. Liam, through our bond, I can understand human strategic thinking in ways I never imagined. And you can manipulate Zephyrian energy systems through pure intention. To demonstrate, she guided their shared awareness toward the station's defensive systems, showing Liam how to interface with crystalline technology using emotional resonance rather than mechanical controls. Following her mental guidance, he discovered he could adjust power distributions, modify sensor arrays, and coordinate defensive measures using nothing but focused thought channeled through their spiritual connection. "This is incredible," he said, watching through enhanced perception as the station's systems responded to their joint commands. "We're not just sharing consciousness, we're creating new capabilities that neither of us possessed individually." A synthesis rather than a simple joining, Princess Lyralii agreed, her excitement flowing through their bond like electricity made of liquid joy. "Liam, I think we may have discovered something unprecedented in galactic history." Their experimentation with the bond's capabilities was interrupted by Commander Torres's voice over the communication system, "All personnel to emergency stations. Hostile vessels have entered weapon range and are demanding immediate surrender of all Zephyrian refugees." Through their shared consciousness, Liam and Princess Lyralii perceived the rebel ship's communication attempts, demands issued in the harsh dialect of Zephyrian military commands, threats of bombardment if their ultimatum wasn't met within 5 minutes. "They can't detect the royal family signatures," Princess Lyralii observed with relief that flowed through their bond like warm sunlight. "The soul bond is masking their biopatterns completely. But they're still going to attack the station if we don't surrender someone," Liam pointed out. "They came here expecting to find refugees. When they don't detect any Zephyrian royalty, they'll assume we're using some kind of technological countermeasures and begin systematic searches." Through their enhanced perception, they could sense the rebel commanders' growing frustration as their tracking systems failed to locate targets they knew should be present. The emotional signatures from the rebel ships carried increasing levels of anger and suspicion that suggested violence was imminent. "We need to give them something to find," Princess Lyralii said, her thoughts merging with Liam's to develop a strategy that combined human tactical thinking with Zephyrian energy manipulation. "But not the real refugees." Decoy signatures, Liam realized, understanding her intention through their shared consciousness. "Use the station's systems to project false biopatterns that will satisfy their sensors without actually revealing anyone's location." Working together through the soul bond, they began manipulating the station's energy systems to create phantom signatures that would appear to rebel tracking systems as scattered Zephyrian refugees hiding throughout the civilian areas. The process required Liam's human understanding of deception and misdirection combined with Princess Lyralii's knowledge of how Zephyrian biosensors functioned. "There," she said as the false signatures stabilized. "They should detect what appears to be a dozen refugees spread across multiple levels, too dispersed for efficient capture but consistent with people trying to avoid detection." The rebel ship's communication patterns shifted as their sensors began detecting the decoy signatures. Through the bond, Liam and Princess Lyralii could sense the rebel commanders' satisfaction as they began planning boarding operations to capture their apparent targets. "This will buy us time," Liam said. "But once they beam aboard and discover the signatures are false, they'll realize we have capabilities they didn't expect. And they'll escalate to more aggressive methods," Princess Lyralii agreed. "Liam, there's something else I should tell you about our bond. Something I discovered when our consciousness merged." "What?" Her emotional signature carried weight that suggested the information was both important and potentially disturbing. "The rebels aren't working alone. Through the connection, I accessed memories and knowledge that I shouldn't possess, information about their operations that goes far beyond simple political rebellion." "What kind of information?" "They're receiving support from an external organization. Something called the Purity Coalition, which appears to be manipulating conflicts throughout this sector of space." Princess Lyralii's consciousness shared images and data that flowed through their bond like inherited memories. "Liam, I think this civil war was engineered specifically to destroy peaceful relations between humans and Zephyrians. Through their enhanced awareness, they could sense approach vectors that indicated the rebel ships were preparing to dock with the station, bringing armed boarding parties that would systematically search for refugees while ostensibly following their sensor readings. "How much time do we have?" Liam asked. "Perhaps 20 minutes before they realize the signatures are false and begin more direct interrogation methods," Princess Lyralii replied. "But Liam, if I'm right about the Purity Coalition, these rebels are just one part of a much larger threat to interspecies cooperation throughout the galaxy." Their soul bond pulsed with shared determination as both of them realized that saving the refugees was only the beginning of a challenge that could affect the future of multiple civilizations. "Then we'd better figure out how to use this connection to do more than just hide people," Liam said, feeling Princess Lyralii's agreement resonate through their merged consciousness. "We need to stop whatever the Purity Coalition is planning before they destroy everything we're trying to build." The rebel boarding parties moved through Harmony's Edge with the methodical efficiency of soldiers who performed similar operations dozens of times, their crystalline armor gleaming with combat readiness as they followed sensor readings toward empty corridors and vacant storage bays. Through their soul bond, Liam and Princess Lyralii tracked the search party's positions while simultaneously investigating the data streams that had revealed the Purity Coalition's involvement. "The information is fragmentary," Princess Lyralii said, her consciousness sharing memories that belonged to rebel commanders she'd never met, but the pattern is consistent across multiple operations. "The Coalition provides funding, weapons, and strategic intelligence to destabilize peaceful relations between species throughout this sector. Creating chaos to justify their expansion policies," Liam added, processing the implications through their shared awareness. "If they can prove that interspecies cooperation inevitably leads to conflict, human leadership might support Purity Coalition proposals for human-only territorial claims." Through their enhanced perception, they could sense the rebel search team's growing frustration as they investigated increasingly empty locations. The decoy signatures had served their purpose, but the deception wouldn't hold much longer. "Liam," Princess Lyralii said, her consciousness sharing tactical assessments that flowed through their bond like inherited instincts, "we need to access the rebel ship's communication logs to gather evidence about Coalition operations. But that requires getting close enough to interface with their systems." "How close?" "Physical contact with their primary data cores. Which means boarding one of their vessels while they're searching for us." Liam felt their shared consciousness process the magnitude of what she was suggesting. "That's insane. We'd be walking into the middle of a military operation with nothing but our soul bond and whatever diplomatic immunity might be worth to people who've already decided to commit acts of war. It's also our only chance to gather proof that the Purity Coalition exists," Princess Lyralii replied. "Without evidence, both human and Zephyrian leadership will dismiss our warnings as conspiracy theories." Their discussion was interrupted by Commander Torres's voice over the internal communication system. "Dr. Hayes, Princess Lyralii, the search teams are requesting direct audience with station leadership. They're threatening to begin aggressive interrogation protocols if their targets aren't located within the next 10 minutes. Through their bond, both of them could sense the rebel commanders' increasing agitation as their carefully planned operation failed to produce the expected results. The emotional signatures from the boarding parties carried frustration that was evolving toward anger, the kind of anger that led to unfortunate accidents during prisoner interrogations. "We're out of time," Liam said. "If we're going to attempt this data recovery mission, it has to be now." "Agreed. But Liam, once we leave the station, we'll be completely dependent on our soul bond for survival. If the connection fails or proves incompatible with the stress of combat operations, then we die together instead of watching innocent people get massacred separately," Liam finished. "I can live with those odds." Princess Lyralii's emotional signature carried warmth that felt like sunlight made of pure affection. "I am honored to share this risk with you." They made their way through maintenance corridors toward the docking bay where the rebel flagship had attached to the station. The soul bond allowed them to coordinate their movements with supernatural precision, avoiding patrol routes and security checkpoints through shared awareness that processed information faster than either individual consciousness could have managed. There, Princess Lyralii whispered as they reached an access hatch that led directly into the rebel ship's secondary cargo bay. The data cores should be located near the command center, approximately 60 meters from our entry point. Any helpful advice for infiltrating hostile alien spacecraft? Move like you belong there, think calm thoughts to avoid triggering their emotion sensors, and remember that Zephyrian ship layouts follow spiritual harmony principles rather than human efficiency models. They slipped through the access hatch into a vessel that felt like stepping inside a living crystal, its corridors formed from grown rather than manufactured materials that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. The soul bond translated the ship's emotional resonance, revealing deck plans through spiritual architecture that human minds weren't designed to understand but could navigate through their connection to Princess Lyralii's consciousness. Left corridor leads to the command center, she guided through their bond. But Liam, I'm sensing something unexpected about this ship's crew composition. Unexpected how? Some of these emotional signatures aren't entirely Zephyrian. There are consciousness patterns that suggest hybrid individuals, beings who've undergone technological enhancement to suppress natural empathy responses. Through their enhanced perception, they could sense the ship's crew members moving through their duties with mechanical precision that felt wrong for a species whose entire culture was based on emotional resonance. The rebel soldiers they encountered showed none of the complex emotional harmonics that characterized normal Zephyrian consciousness. The Purity Coalition has been modifying them, Princess Lyralii realized, her horror flowing through their bond like ice water. They're using technological implants to suppress the very traits that make Zephyrians capable of peaceful coexistence. Creating perfect soldiers who can't feel empathy for their targets, Liam said, understanding the implications. That's not military enhancement, that's consciousness mutilation. They reached the command center to find data cores that hummed with information streams connecting this vessel to dozens of similar operations throughout the sector. Through their soul bond, Princess Lyralii interfaced with the ship's systems while Liam provided tactical oversight, their merged consciousness allowing them to download intelligence data at speeds that should have triggered security protocols. Here, she said, sharing discovery through their connection. Communication logs showing coalition funding for rebellions on 18 different worlds. Arms shipments, strategic intelligence, political manipulation, they're orchestrating conflicts across half the galaxy. And look at this, Liam added, processing financial records that revealed the scope of the operation. They're not just funding rebellions, they're betting against peace. Every time a diplomatic initiative fails, coalition investment groups profit from the resulting instability. The data painted a picture of systematic manipulation designed to make interspecies cooperation appear impossible while creating market conditions that benefited human-only expansion policies. The Zephyrian Civil War was just one operation in a network that stretched across dozens of star systems. We have enough evidence to bring down the entire operation, Princess Lyralii said. But first we need to. Alarms began wailing throughout the rebel ship as security systems finally detected their unauthorized access. Through their bond, they could sense armed response teams converging on the command center with weapons designed to stun rather than kill. The rebels wanted prisoners for interrogation. Time to leave, Liam said, but their escape route was already blocked by soldiers whose emotional signatures carried the mechanical emptiness of beings whose capacity for mercy had been surgically removed. Surrender immediately, the lead soldier commanded in harsh Zephyrian dialect. You will be questioned regarding your knowledge of refugee locations and station defensive capabilities. Princess Lyralii stepped forward with royal authority that made her crystalline skin blaze with bioluminescent patterns of command. I am Princess Lyralii of the Zephyrian Ascendancy. You will stand down and allow our departure. Former Princess Lyralii, the soldier corrected. The royal line has been dissolved by military decree. You are now classified as a rebel sympathizer subject to immediate detention. Through their soul bond, Liam felt Princess Lyralii's consciousness merge with his in preparation for something unprecedented. Their shared awareness expanded to encompass the entire ship's systems, revealing energy patterns and structural harmonics that could be manipulated through focused intention. Liam, she said through their connection, are you ready to discover what human determination combined with Zephyrian energy manipulation can accomplish? Let's find out, he replied, feeling their merged consciousness reach out to touch every system aboard the rebel vessel. What happened next would be discussed in xenological circles for decades. The soul bond between human and Zephyrian consciousness created resonance patterns that interfaced with the ship's crystalline technology in ways that bypassed normal operational parameters. Every energy system aboard the vessel responded to their shared will, creating cascading feedback loops that rendered weapons inoperative, disabled life support in strategic locations, and opened emergency evacuation routes that shouldn't have existed. "This is impossible," the lead soldier said as his weapon powered down against his will. "Impossible is a human specialty," Liam replied, guiding Princess Lyralii toward an escape route that their combined consciousness had created through pure intention. They returned to Harmony's Edge with evidence that would eventually expose the Purity Coalition's operations throughout the sector, but more importantly, they discovered that their soul bond represented something unprecedented in galactic history. A synthesis of different species' capabilities that created new possibilities for cooperation and mutual enhancement. 6 months later, Liam stood in the observation deck of the newly established Human-Zephyrian Cultural Exchange Institute, watching construction crews from both species working together to build research facilities that would have been impossible without the understanding their bond had helped create. Princess Lyralii had formally abdicated her royal inheritance to work as an independent diplomat, though she still wore the symbols of her heritage with pride. "Any regrets?" she asked, joining him at the viewing window. The ring on his finger caught starlight and reflected it in patterns that seemed to extend into dimensions beyond normal perception. "About permanently bonding my consciousness with the most brilliant individual I've ever met?" Liam considered the question while feeling her amusement flow through their shared awareness. "None whatsoever. Though I'm still adjusting to the fact that I can never surprise you with my thoughts anymore." "You surprise me constantly," Princess Lyralii said, taking his hand so that their rings touched and created small sparkles of interdimensional energy. "Human consciousness is endlessly fascinating to experience from the inside." "What's our next project?" he asked, watching human children and young Zephyrians play together in the Institute's cultural exchange areas. "The Altarian Confederation has requested assistance with establishing peaceful contact with the Void Dwellers," she replied. "Apparently, there are rumors of another Purity Coalition operation designed to prevent any diplomatic solutions. Sounds like they need consultants who specialize in impossible diplomatic challenges," Liam said. "Sounds like they need us," Princess Lyralii agreed. They stood together in comfortable silence, their souls permanently intertwined across the infinite possibilities of space, their rings serving as constant reminders that sometimes the most beautiful connections are forged between minds that were never meant to be separate. Around them, the Institute buzzed with the activities of two species learning to create something greater than either could achieve alone, proof that understanding transcends the boundaries between any hearts willing to be bound together. In the distance, stars that had once separated their peoples now served as waypoints toward new worlds where their partnership would help others discover that differences in species, culture, and consciousness could become strengths rather than barriers when approached with wisdom, courage, and a willingness to risk everything for the possibility of connection. The ring on Liam's finger pulsed gently with interdimensional energy, a reminder that their bond would endure across any distance, through any challenge, for as long as consciousness itself existed in the universe.